Okay, it is 10:02 and I just get out of a trade because there's a big seller with 1 million shares at 13 and I don't want to risk, oh, I'm going to continue to hold on to the setup and maybe we'll get above VWAP into the 13s and we'll break past it. It could totally do it. I just don't want to take the chance. This was a second dip under VWAP setup with INND. And this one wasn't too bad because, I had that one dip here. I had an excessive candle to the original breakout level of 12, which was pretty cool. I wasn't there when this one was happening right here in the morning. And then it had that uptrend, so it was showing that it can spike. And it got to VWAP, this 1, 2, 3 level to 13. And then when it had another drop under VWAP, and this time this was higher than this level, I thought about being long for that reason. I did buy 25,000 shares at 956. That was right here in this red candle at 126 is when I got in. I think it was like 125.5 or something like that. It was something in the middle. It wasn't, yeah, it wasn't exactly at 126. This was me right here. I was this person who bought 25,000 shares at 125.75, and I was gonna cut it if it was gonna break below 124, because then it might get to 123 and now it's a double bottom and it could be an uptrending setup still because it has a wick here, and then if it just drops to 123 and it holds that and it turns around, that's still an uptrending setup. But I still look at it as a double bottom, and then it would also break this range that it has right here, which I wouldn't find as ideal. Now we have another big seller at 128. I did sell in pieces. I sold at 959, 10,000 shares at 127. Right here at 127 is when I got out 10,000 shares. And then I sold another 10,000 shares at 10 o'clock, and that was at 128 right here. And then I had just 5,000 shares left. I figured, you know what? This is the one I'll hold at if it, breaks this uptrending trend line that I had here, as it already is. If it doesn't hold higher than this level, then I'll just sell that piece, and that might be for break even, it might be for a loss. But at least I tried with 5,000 shares, and that's when we had that big seller show up at 13, and then I decided to sell the rest of the shares for that reason, and that was at 128 at 10:02. Right here, 10:02 was this candle, this green candle. I sold at 128. So this thing could have done more. It could have broken past VWAP, but this is something common with INND. I've seen big sellers at the ask, but it still makes a move. I mean, it broke past 12 the other day, and that was a pretty impressive one. And it had a few dips around that breakout level the other day too, which was also impressive. As you can see, it broke past 12. It had this morning spike, and then it downtrended, and it was a bit choppy. It even had like the big wick thing that we just had right now today. But it was holding this VWAP level for the most part around that breakout level, and then it made another move. It held higher, then it made another move. So this is something that works, and it's just something I have to get used to in terms of how it trades, the price action and everything, and to try to keep the big picture in mind. But I do want to see what this thing can do eventually. Maybe it can try to break past VWAP and try to uptrend more. After all, it is breaking past this 12 level, and now it's trying to break past the 13 level. So this thing can continue to be like some kind of a multi-day breakout that happens a bit slowly. SIRC has been uptrending. Unfortunately, it had the mindset of considering shorting it instead of going long, so I was never long in this setup that is doing a pretty nice uptrend. And look at this little range I had right here the other day. It broke past it. This thing looks like a short squeeze, and that's what I thought the issue could have been when I mentioned yesterday that this thing is shortable on Schwab. I said yesterday that if this thing is shortable on Schwab, who knows how available this stock is to short and how much it might be able to uptrend. So it's now in the crazy part where it's, breaking past this range with a lot of volume. I'll just continue to watch it. It'll still be something I might consider shorting, but if it has like a really nice drop, I might also consider longing it. Why not? So that's going to be the case with that. I'll be looking at SIRC. One trade with INND. This thing can uptrend over a longer period of time. In fact, it looks like I guess it's kind of trying to make another higher low here, perhaps. I'll make an update later. Okay, it is 10:59 and I am currently short SIRC, and this was way back at I guess I can't be, oh, right here at 1028. So far, the promoters, the market makers, whoever they are, or maybe just regular price action, they're doing a damn good job trying to move this thing up and hold on to it. It could easily, very easily, try to break the day high again. And if it gets back to the 427 level, I'll be cutting my position. And I will lose money because even if I get out very close to my entry, I have to pay commissions with Schwab. And that would still be a loss. So even if I get out break even, I'll lose because of commissions. But I did short 1,300 shares at 42.11. That was at 1028. So that was right here. It looked like there was topping action going on, and I got out. Not got out. I got in the position here. I gotta remember I'm in a short position, not a long position. And then it continued the downtrend as it did right here. You can tell that I'm freaking stumbling because I rarely short. And yeah, they're doing a damn good job trying to keep this thing up, and it can again totally get back to the highs. But I mean, considering that it blew off of this part right here, and then we had some topping price action, and then you look at the daily chart, it's way above the EMA 4. I feel like it could downtrend and make a move towards the bottom, but of course it doesn't have to. But I felt like the odds were in, and I'm rarely even able to be in a short position because of the $2.50 rule. In fact, my 1,300 shares short is pretty close to maxing out my account in terms of the $2.50 rule. Of course, I'm not, short my entire account size, but because of that $2.50 rule, every single stock that you short, even if it's a sub penny, is going to count as $2.50 as like collateral. So I'm not able to short that much anyway. But worst case scenario, it breaks the day high and then some slippage. I'll be out and it'll be close to my $40, max loss level, which could totally happen with commissions being a thing. I'll make an update as to what this does eventually, but they're doing a really good job holding on to it, and it can totally try to have like multiple bottoms around this 40 cent level and eventually make it go towards the upside. Okay, it is 11:12 a.m. and I got out of the position with SIRC. I want to see if this thing can break VWAP eventually, but it did break this really round number important level of 40 cents. It did break that and it did downtrend, but look how much volume it took for it to get all the way down there. And then I also thought VWAP could be a level where it could hold. I could be totally wrong, and this thing can totally break and keep heading lower and maybe make back what it gained today and maybe even downtrend some more. But I think this was a great attempt at a short position, something I rarely do, and I don't think I'll do anytime soon because it's very rare that I'm in a situation where I can even consider the shortest setup. The last time there was a possibility where I could have short something was LKNCY, and I wasn't short because I totally forgot that I could even short on Schwab. So let me see if I actually still have a chart of this one available. I guess this was when I went long, but this one eventually downtrended much more. And this was an example of a setup where it did this inverse head and shoulders, it broke past VWAP, and then it started the trade back and forth around VWAP right here. And then when it started to lose distance from it, it did downtrend. It got to the 11s, I believe, and it got maybe even to the 10s. If you look at LKNCY, it did do a drop. This was the day that I traded it on the first, and just to bring back that screenshot, if I still have it, right? The low at the time was 1207, did that inverse head and shoulders. I went long, and this was a nice trade, and then it eventually broke the low of 1207, and this was on the first. As you can see, maybe, yeah, this was the first. So you see it got lower. It got all the way to $11 because it started to have that distance from VWAP. It started a downtrend, but I just didn't short it because I didn't know, I forgot that I could short on Schwab, especially this OTC being a high-priced OTC. Once again, I could have actually have shorted a much larger position because this is well above $2.50. I want to see what SIRC will do. It can totally hold here because it dropped to that important level of 40 cents. It even broke under it, got a whole bunch of volume, and then it held VWAP, and now it might try to trade back and forth an uptrend. It could totally do something like that here, and it could also just continue the downtrend as well, and break VWAP, and then that would be pretty big in terms of what it could do towards the bottom. So yeah, I had that trade there, 16 bucks, and that was including commissions. I'd be up more if I didn't have to pay any commissions on Schwab. This is why I stopped trading on Schwab and went to Fidelity, because you can trade OTCs without having to pay commissions. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll go over as to what it does later. It looks like it can uptrend, it could downtrend, it could do anything, but I just didn't want to get too greedy, right, on the setup that works, whether I'm long or short, and then it eventually starts going against me because I didn't, cut the trade when I was supposed to, because I wanted more profits, and then you start getting, really crazy about it, and then what happens is that you end up losing money. So I'll make an update later. That's all I have for right now. It is 12:14 p.m. and I want to make an update as to the setups that I missed out on, whether it was because I was with SIRC and I don't want to trade two things at once, to setups that just happened before SIRC. There have been a lot of setups. HKD is not something I would have been able to have been short at any point, because this thing was not shortable on Schwab, and I would have probably been way too scared shorting this in the first place, because it does trade with a spread, which is essentially way too much. This is a listed stock, $5 risk level. I mean, that would just play off into the spread, but this thing was a very impressive downtrending stock. Nothing I would have traded with it, but it was something, maybe, I don't know, if I even get there 50 levels up, right, where I would have like an account with Cobra, and I have a much higher risk level with listed stocks. When you see that this thing was all the way in the news in the 2400s, I mean, that's when you know that there's a good chance that the top is in. Of course, you never know for sure, but once it started to hit the news on this day when it closed at this price, it had a gap up, but it never got to the wick. This thing was a pretty impressive downtrend. As for INND, this was my trade here. It did downtrend more. I don't know if I would have traded this, because this would have been kind of scary. This was a lot of volume, and it did turn around though from the 11.5s to VWAP at 126, so that was a setup there. EMGE, nothing I would have traded. I mean, this thing did break the day high here, but it just jumped on air. EMGE is just doing its thing, trading with little volume to try to catch up, I guess, and gain itself near the highs. This one was very nice with CYDY. I like how this thing had an uptrend. It broke past $1 and it continued to hold it. It did break past it the other day. It held the level. It had a dip. I actually hesitated on this one. I had an interest in buying at 101, and then, I saw it get to 104, and I thought, all right, that's cool, but I didn't watch it anymore. This thing decided to have like a little trend line right here, and it got as high as 115. That was a setup I missed out on. I could have been a part of this. And then this was a dip towards VWAP. This one held it very nicely, and then it turned around from the 111s. It got as high as the 120. So this was a very impressive move. I think at this point it was at 1040. Yeah, this is when I was at the short position with SIRC. This was something I didn't trade because I was in another setup, but this would have been something that I could have traded, and this thing would have been pretty cool to be a part of. And then as for SIRC, this thing I missed out on when it broke the day high. This thing had a very impressive move, kind of like CYDY, the option that it had, and it broke like the day high as well. Even though I made a nice amount shorting it, I could have made so much more going long, and then I never saw this. This thing broke the level. And I know, at least because of me, I was in a short position. I'm sure a lot of people were shorting this, and they were greedy and stupid, and then the market makers or whoever, the price action got to them. This was a nice move from the 42s to the 44s, and it can try to continue to get higher as well. I haven't been watching a price action to see how good it is, but I mean, it still broke the day high and made this nice move. So that's pretty much about it. That was a lot of nice setups. I only traded 2 setups. I need to try to get more aggressive, but I don't mind any of the setups that I missed by being long in another setup or short in another setup, like in this case. But I totally could have been a part of this. CYDY could have been a part of this. I hesitated on it, and then I didn't want to chase. At least I didn't, chase it. And then I'm in at 104, and then when it drops here, I get chickened out or something dumb like that. But this was a nice dip towards VWAP. You might say this might be a nice one too, but I'm actually kind of worried about it because it's the second dip. It doesn't have to work out, and it's had like this very nice, uptrend, kind of like SIRC, although SIRC is a lot better. I will make an update later, but there were a lot of nice setups today. Okay, it is 7:33 p.m. and I'm here to call it off. Overall, I'm going to be up on a day $20.76, and that was one trade with SIRC and then the first trade initially with INND. There were so many setups that were out there today, and I could have been much more profitable, especially with SIRC. It did one more downtrend, and this was nice because this was like a head and shoulders, a shoulder, the head right here, and the shoulder. This was a very sharp downtrend. If I was a part of something like this, I would not have held. I would have been covering somewhere into here because it did have a drop like this when I was first short, but it wasn't something that just blew under VWAP. Again, when I had my short right here, it did get to VWAP. It did get to that round number of 40 cents. And when it broke that round number 40 cents, it did not break VWAP. And, there wasn't momentum in that. It broke 40 and then we break VWAP and then it panics. It held. And that's why I got out. And that's good because it saved me from this squeeze. This was a pretty nice squeeze and it doesn't look like much anymore, but you can see the volume here. Somebody got squeezed on this uptrend, or maybe it was just the people, the people were just buying the breakout setup because that was also nice as well. This was a pretty cool downtrend, and then it also made a move towards the upside. So you gotta, I guess, be careful when it comes to SIRC because they do a really good job with the way this one trades. And yeah, this was a pretty good setup. This would have been much more profitable, profitable than the one I took right here. And EMGE did a crappy low volume uptrend. CYDY, again, this one was nice. I wanted to really have traded these because it's not like something in the morning where it can continue to be uptrending, but these did offer some dips as well under VWAP. That's pretty much about it. HKD did do a bounce back. Maybe I could have traded this one as well if, I bought it at like 550 with the low being 545. That would have been a $5 risk level, but that's basically, I think, impossible because it trades with a spread. That's it for today. There were a ton of setups, so I'm glad I at least tried. Two setups. I think it was better than the other day where I just saw a lot of setups happen without me. That's all I have for today.